Welcome to Bench to Bedside, a weekly series of live conversations about recent advances in cancer, from the research bench to treatment at the patient's bedside. I'm Dr. Roy Jensen, Director of the University of Kansas Cancer Center. My guests today are Dr. Shrikant Anant, who is the Associate Director of Cancer Control and Prevention at the University of Kansas Cancer Center, and Doug Sharp, who is with the Thomas P. Sullivan Foundation and a cancer research advocate. As we continue to develop new and better approaches to treating cancer, advocates can play an important role in cancer research. A research advocate can be anyone, a patient, family member, caregiver, or an individual who is passionate about medical research. Advocates help bridge gaps that exist between research and the cancer community at large. Clinicians and researchers fully grasp the diagnosis of cancer in its scientific setting. However, advocates bring a non-scientific viewpoint to the research process and communicate the patient perspective. A research advocate brings a human face to cancer research that reinforces the need to accelerate progress. So Doug, why don't I start with you? Could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you first became involved in cancer research?
I'm a landscape contractor here in town, and we kind of got thrust into the cancer world kind of as a surprise and a horrible surprise. In 2007, a very good friend died from colorectal cancer in June, and feeling that void that we all felt, we decided to do something. And I talked to his wife. She talked to the family, and we wanted to just start out with a small golf tournament and maybe raise a little bit of money and do something in his memory. The first year we held this golf tournament, and to our surprise raised $55,000. And then we decided we needed something to do with that. So that's when we got involved with KU and had a discussion about what we could do with the money. And 10 years later, down the road, and nearly $400,000 later, we're here.
So tell me a little bit about how you and Shri got together.
In 2010, I think it was our third golf tournament.
Yep.
I met Shri. You had just gotten here.
That's right.
And he came to the golf tournament and saw our passion and what we wanted to do, and we real quickly became friends and started this partnership.
So how does it work, how a private foundation like yours can work towards contributing to advancing cancer research?
Well, I can only speak from our experience, but we started out with a strategic planning session where we tried to decide what we were going to do with the money that we were raising. And we came up with two things. We have a connection to people, and we wanted to gain knowledge so we were better stewards of the money we were raising. So in that process, we became involved with Fight Colorectal Cancer out of Alexandria, Virginia, and we participated in their policy conference, their national policy conference, and we've been able to influence national policy. And then to gain knowledge, we had representatives go to the AACR, the American Association for Cancer Research annual meeting, and that's where we really gained a lot of knowledge about research and the bench-to-bedside life cycle of any research project, and gained knowledge, and we were better able to determine what projects were worthy of funding. So we were doing a good job with the money we were given.
Mm-hmm. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about the benefits of research advocate partnerships and how engaging research advocates helps inform and shape cancer research to optimally reflect what is important to patients. I'd like to remind our audience that Pam Crawford is here today in the studio to take your questions if you have any. And I'd like to remind you to remember to share this link with people you think might benefit from our discussion. Use the hashtag #BenchToBedside. So Shri, what role do you see advocates having in cancer research?
So advocates play a huge role in our cancer research. I call myself the lab rat. You know, we can take an experiment and go in 50 different ways. But you know, what the advocates do for us is they bring a human face to it. We sometimes lose track of what is most important for the patient. They come back and tell us about what the patients are going through, what are the problems they're having, and the problems that we need to tackle. And so then when we have these discussions, Doug and I have had so many discussions, right, Doug?
Yeah.
That has helped me think about the experiments, the direction that our research has to go, so that we can come up with good solutions that will help the patients, if not the patient at that point in the future.
So maybe each of you could tell me a little bit about kind of what are the shared goals that you have developed by working together in the colon cancer arena.
So you want me to start first?
Yeah.
So really, I'm not only a cancer researcher. I'm kind of an advocate. My grandfather died of colorectal cancer, so I realize why cancer research is important, especially colon cancer. So, as my parents have told me, my grandfather died before I was born. So, as my parents have told me, the trials and tribulations that they went through, I would not want anyone else to have to go through it. So the advocates, and then I forget, as I said, when I'm working in the bench and I've got this beautiful result and I want to go forward through it, sometimes you have to ask, is there any mileage to it? Or is that a great experiment to do in the bench that has really no translation to the clinic? So what I have done then is I've talked to Doug, and then I would talk to the patients that he is dealing with. I've actually gone to their meetings, and we discussed the kind of research that's going on, and they've helped us in thinking through our own experiments. And that has been brilliant.
So Doug, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess we think mostly about the future, like you mentioned earlier, and what the cancer world is going to become down the road. And we see, and Dr. Knott keeps us informed on these statistics, young people, for instance, in colon cancer, between the ages of 20 and 30 are going to experience a 125% increase in incidence over the next 5 years or so. So we see it as really important for us to listen to people like Shri and listen to patients and people that come to us and share their experiences, and work together to come out with some kind of goal that will help these people down the road.
So I can tell you that Dr. Anant and I both work awfully hard to obtain funding for our research. And one of the most important issues that we have is funding new ideas. Perhaps could you tell us about the role that foundations play in funding early research?
Absolutely. So we had discovered the stem cell and a marker for stem cell, a protein. The NIH does, it's a catch-22. You have to have some basic sets of results, preliminary data, to show the NIH that the experiments that we are going to conduct is going to work. So where are we going to get the funds to be able to get that minimum set of experiments to be done so that we can put a good grant application package together? So it's a catch-22. You need the data to get money, to get more data. So that initial seed funding for research comes from foundations. And a fantastic example would be the one that I was telling you about, the protein that we discovered. It's called DCLK1. It's an enzyme. And we did not know how we were going to identify a small molecule for it. But to identify a compound to inhibit that protein so that we can make a drug to treat patients, we needed some seed funding to be able to generate some drugs to show that drugs can work and to find the right drug for the protein. And that money actually came from the O'Sullivan Foundation. So it took about 2 years of funding, of fundraising, right, Doug? Before they gave us the money. And then that was the money that was used so we could hire a chemist to make the compounds, a medicinal chemist to come up with what kind of drug design needs to be made, a pharmaceutical chemist to come and see if it works. and then finally us as biologists to see that in a mouse model that it would work. We had that as a preliminary data, and then we went to the NIH and said, look, we do have a drug. We need to make a better drug than this, but we are at the first step. They loved it. And they gave us a $3.5 million grant to be able to develop this drug. And we are right at the cusp of developing studies now. We have shown that we have a drug which is really effective in the mouse. We now have to take it to humans. So we have to do what is called pre-IND enabling studies. These are, the FDA has to approve the drug for human clinical trials. So there are a whole set of experiments that need to be done, and we are right at that door where we are going to apply for another grant to be able to get that funding. This would have never happened if not for O'Sullivan Foundation.
Sounds like a great return on investment. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about the power of engaging advocates in cancer research. And Pam Crawford is here in the studio to take any of your questions. So Pam, do you have a question from our audience?
Yes, we have a question from Ashley. She's asking, what are the best ways for advocates to get involved with cancer research at the University of Kansas Cancer Center?
Well, maybe I'll let Doug.
Well, at the University of Kansas Cancer Center, I would say the new Pivot program would probably be a place where they could get involved with and become advocates for cancer research. New program and exciting. We've become one of their first advocate partners through Pivot. So that would be where I would suggest.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. You know, we have, there's a lot of races in other events that we have throughout the year that people, oftentimes that's their initial entree into getting involved with the Cancer Center, but you can also, you're welcome to directly contact us as well. So Cherie, what opportunities do you see in enhancing the relationship between cancer researchers and patient advocates?
An example would be what I was just telling you. I go out there, I meet with people like Doug. If I get the first, like Ashley just asked this question, how can I get involved? If Ashley sends me an email, I would then set up a meeting. I would go talk to Ashley to find out what her interests are. Why does she want to do it? There's always the why. Why is the most important thing. Once they give us why they are interested, then we can talk about what is it that we are doing that fits with their interests. And then what we would do is ask them who all are in their group. When Ashley, let's say, take an example of Ashley, who all in Ashley's group would be interested in wanting to know about this. Ask them to come and visit us in the lab, show us what we are doing. So we are not sitting in an ivory tower, really. We want them to come and be a partner with us. And then we invite them every once in a while to come. We present them as to what has happened, tell them what the data is and what we have found, ask them for their input. And this has been a great back and forth that has helped us. As we developed our drug for DCLK, that's what I did with the O'Sullivan Foundation. The foundation comes and visits us at least once in 6 months, if not a year.
Doug, do you have any final thoughts from today's Facebook Live session?
Final thoughts would be, it's really important for people to to get involved in the cancer world, because cancer is not going anywhere. It's going to be around a long time. You guys are working really, really hard to find treatments and cures, and hopefully someday turn this condition into something chronic that people can actually live with instead of die from. So those are my thoughts.
All right. Pam, looks like we have another question from our audience.
We do have a question from Chris. Any exciting research breakthroughs you can share?
Do you want to take that one, Cherie?
So for pancreatic cancer, we just recently discovered a new signaling pathway. So you know, the cell, there are proteins that bind to the outside of the cell, and then it sends a signal to the nucleus for it to divide and to grow and grow faster. So we actually recently discovered a protein which is believed to, which we know plays a huge role in development, in fetus and in baby. So we never really thought that this was a protein that should play any role in colon or pancreatic cancer, and lo and behold, two of my graduate students actually have discovered that both in colon and pancreatic cancer, this whole signaling pathway is playing a huge role in aggressiveness of the cancer. Now, because it's a protein signaling system that plays a role in development, nobody made a small molecule drug. You're not going to make a drug to hurt the baby formation, right? So now we are thinking we need to really develop a drug. This is a brand new discovery that we have had. The other one I told you about was the stem cell. That is a huge discovery because we've always wondered why cancers grow so fast, yet when the surgeon has gone and taken out the cancer, when the physician has given all these drugs and we think the patient is free of a cancer, it comes roaring back. And it comes back, it's a lot more aggressive. So we've always wondered why, and my lab actually thought about the fact that it was through a patient, kid, whose father had passed away with cancer, who came back and said, I don't understand, I want to study this, and came up with this beehive hypothesis, where there are lots of worker bees and a mother bee. So the same thought with the cancer, there are lots of dividing cells and maybe one or two quiescent cells. These cells, the mother bee is still an active bee. It's just a different physiological bee. Same way, these cells are active, but not the way the other cells, they're not dividing. So all our current therapies were to kill these rapidly dividing cells, and we never really thought about those quiescent cells. And that's why these things come roaring back. And my lab was, I'm very fortunate, God blessed us. We found that quiescent stem cell, we found a protein in the stem cell, and now we have made a drug for the stem cell, thanks to the O'Sullivan Foundation. And now we are in about 3 to 5 years, we should be in the clinic with that drug. That's a big discovery.
Looks like we have another question, Pam.
We do have another question. We have a question about, with so many cancers out there, not every cancer might have a patient advocate. So what is being happened, and how can people help advocate on those cancers that don't have an advocacy group right now?
Sure. Well, that's that's a great question, and I would say that we owe a lot for the women who have survived breast cancer and have really helped define the whole advocacy movement. And as a result, we've moved the needle from 75% overall 5-year survival for breast cancer patients back in the 1970s to now where it's well over 90%. So just look at the impact that they've had. And we're in a position now where we need to take those lessons that were learned from breast cancer advocates and really translate those into other organ systems as well. And that's, Doug, earlier you mentioned Pivot, and that's exactly the role of what Pivot is trying to play. Another question?
Yes. Lon has a question, reference to conversation earlier. Why is there going to be such an increase in colon cancer in the younger age group?
Would love to know, really is the answer. So what we have done, we don't know the answer, but we are not going to sit back and say we don't know. So what we have done is we are actually collaborating with the GI, gastroenterologists in Children's Mercy Hospital. So we are actually there are patients there, there are about 80 patients, kids, who have polyps in their colon. So we are actually collecting those. We are bringing them back to the lab, and we're trying to study them. Are they different from the adult polyps, which we can get from KU Hospital? And ask the question, what is the difference? How can we start thinking about prevention at a very young, much younger age, and not wait till they're about 40 to start doing this kind of experiments?
All right. Go ahead.
Another question. Danielle's asking, is KU Cancer Center doing anything for March Awareness Month for colon cancer awareness?
Well, actually, Pam, you may be in the best position to answer that question for us.
Yes, we are. The University of Kansas Cancer Center and the University of Kansas Health System is doing quite a bit in March to share this message. We'd love for you to follow us on Facebook and tune into a series we're going to be launching, Cooking Therapy. So we'll be sharing recipes once a week throughout the month of March. We're also going to have lots of community activities If you're local in Kansas City, we'd love for you to come join us at First Friday and visit the inflatable colon. So lots going on. Thanks for asking, and stay tuned on social media for more updates.
All right, well, I'd like to thank Doug Sharp from the Thomas B. Sullivan Foundation and my good friend and colleague at the KU Cancer Center, Dr. Shri Anant, for today's Facebook Live session. Next week, we will discuss genetic testing and why understanding your risk factors for cancer allows you to make the most informed decisions about your health care. That's right here next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank-